and within this publication itself, and we extend our gratitude to each of them. Prior to today's webinar, all AIM members were granted access to the full version of the handbook via the FIP library using their AIM credentials. Furthermore, all FIP members received an email providing access to an open access summary version of the publication, ensuring widespread availability of this resource. I would also like to extend a special thanks to my colleagues at FIP who have been instrumental in making today's event possible. Genuine, our webinar facilitator, will be introduced shortly and has been very helpful in coordinating this webinar. Our communications team members, Linda Wang, Marina Libre, and Laila Gorab, along with Hala Fatima, have provided support in the lead up to this event. And a special mention to Marianne van der Veen, who is currently working behind the scenes to ensure the smooth running of today's webinar. Let's see the next slide, please, Genuine. Thank you. With that said, I would like to mention briefly about FIP AIM, that is the organizer of today's event. So AIM stands as a unique global network that bridges schools of pharmacy and global academic leaders, fostering a community where ideas, leadership, and academic excellence converge. Our membership comprises schools of pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences, each represented by their deans or members of their academic leadership teams. If your institution is yet to join this community, we invite you to become a part of FIP AIM. You can start by scanning QR code displayed on the screen or by reaching out to us at aim@fip.org. Our team is ready to guide you through the benefits of membership and assist you throughout joining process and ensuring you gain access to resources and a global network committed to advancing pharmacy education and leadership. Let's see the next slide. Thank you. I would also like to announce the upcoming FIP World Congress of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences, set to take from 1 to 4 September in Cape Town, South Africa. This Congress promises to be a landmark event, offering a rich program under the theme of Advancing Pharmacy for Future Global Health. At the Congress, AIM will be hosting a special annual event for our global academic leaders, the AIM Global Academic Leaders Forum, or GALF for short. This year, GALF theme is Advancing Pharmacy Education, Navigating Recruitment and Retention Strategies for Faculty and Students in Schools of Pharmacy. All AIM schools, along with their leadership teams, are invited to participate in this engaging event, which provides a networking opportunity. Moreover, AIM members are entitled to a special discount for the Congress, further underscoring our commitment to facilitating the active participation of academic leaders in this global FIP Congress. Let's see the next slide and start our webinar. Today, we'll start with an opening and a welcome from our AIM chair, Lilian Atsoparty. Following that, we'll have a special recording from our FIP CEO, Dr. Catherine Duggan, sharing her insights. Our agenda today is packed with presentations from speakers, each bringing valuable perspectives to advancing pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. After the presentations, we'll open the floor for a Q&A session where you're welcome to ask questions and engage with our speakers. To wrap up, we'll hear concluding remarks from the FIPET chair, Ralph Altieri, providing us with key takeaways from today's discussions. And finally, the next area of concentration for the AIM group will be announced by the AIM chair, Lilian Atsoparty. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to an engaging and insightful session. Let's see the learning objectives now. Today, we'll discuss strategies to enhance academic capacity in pharmacy education, aligning with the evolving needs of a global healthcare. We'll also provide insights into the critical domains of the AIM handbook, illustrating its practical application in diverse educational settings. Additionally, we aim to empower educators by demonstrating how this publication can help improve the quality and impact of pharmacy education programs. Now, with pleasure, let's have the next slide, and I'll hand over to my colleague, Genuine, to share some tips about the webinar today and inform you about the FIP Unit Win program that he is leading successfully. The floor is yours, Genuine.
Thank you so much, Ozge. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Wherever you're listening to us from, we appreciate you taking your time to be here with us. My name is Genuine Desire, and I am the Educational Partnerships and Projects Manager at FIP, and I manage the Unit program. Today, I will be your facilitator, and I'll be handling everything behind the scenes. Just for very quick housekeeping rules before we begin. First, this webinar is being recorded and it's being live streamed on the FIP Facebook and YouTube pages, and we will support attendees with subtitles during the event. The recording will also be available on our website at www.fip.org. During the course of this webinar, we will have polls, and we will encourage you to participate in those polls. Additionally, you may also use the chat and the Q&A box to ask any question that you may have. You're also welcome to provide any feedback you have about these webinars to webinars@fip.org. And we still encourage all of you to become FIP members as well as FIP AIM members. To register to become a FIP AIM member, please scan the QR code as shown. Now, to just speak briefly about the Unit program as part of FIP's education transformation goal, the FIP UNESCO Unit program is a global network of universities and schools of pharmacy that aims to promote an integrated system of research, teaching, and training, as well as community engagement and communication. We are excited that we renewed our agreement with UNESCO till 2027. And as part of promoting collaboration and sustainability and addressing inequities in technology and education, we are building on our regional needs assessment and launching centers of excellence in all the WHO regions. We began with centers for excellence in Africa and recently the Southeast Asia region, and we hope to launch more centers for excellence in the Western Pacific, Europe, Americas, and Eastern Mediterranean regions by the end of this year. To learn more about the Unity Network for Pharmaceutical Education Development, please scan the QR code on the right. And for any queries or information you may need on the Unity program, please feel free to contact us at education@fip.org. I'll now hand it over to Lillian, who will start us off. Thank you.
Thank you, Genuine and Ozge, for starting us off for this webinar. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for joining us live or follow up, those of you who are following us through the recording platform. I am Lilian Azzopardi, and I come from the University of Malta, and I have the pleasure of being currently the FIP AIM chair, which gives me the opportunity to work very closely with all colleagues who have been working on this working group and other colleagues who we meet through the FIP platform. So without further ado, I would like to pass on to the next slide to put forward the background to the topic of today. We are today celebrating two milestones: the International Day of Education, and at the same time, a milestone which has become a tradition for FIP AIM to launch the work that has been done by the working group on the area of concentration. And we are today celebrating the launch of the publication on the academic capacity building. The background to the area that we have worked on and to the publication that now is available is based on signals that we received from the members of FIP AIM and also from signals received through UNITWIN, where it was highlighted that academic capacity is an area that we, all of us in the academic institutions, are always working to and improving and taking up a number of our resources. So we all believe, and this is the message is very clear, that academic capacity and education in itself is actually giving power to the graduates and the faculty and the institution to be a means of transmitting a momentum for advancement of pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. And on this slide, I have put up this picture, which is very commonly seen when one is looking at what used to happen during the Greek times. It's the picture by Raphael from the School of Athens, which is used many times to underline the value that at that time Greeks used to give to education, not only to the individual, but also because we're building an individual, how that education is actually empowering and providing the individual and the institution to have also a say in socio-political leadership, be it at your institutional level, but also on a national and global level. And this thought, when I was preparing for this session today, came to mind as I was looking at how powerful the work on academic capacity that AIM has produced has, and how powerful it is on what we could contribute to on our individual team members and students, as well as to our institution and the pharmacy profession. So in the next slide, we can also see how this thought of empowerment of individuals and institutions also contributes to the theme of today, this year, for the International Day of Education, which is the International Day of Education is led by UNESCO. And this year, the theme is Learning for Lasting Peace, with an underlying message that the more we educate, the more we are able to also contribute to an academic capacity building, the more leaders we are having. And through education, it's one means of being able to contribute to the social, political network and transform the profession and also the social network to sustain peace and reduce conflicts, improve on tolerance, and reduce violence. So I think it's very apt that the theme for this year, and we as educators are celebrating something, a deliverable, which is contributing to providing an academic capacity. And we believe that education in itself contributes to having more people on the ground to be able to launch and spread this theme of the International Day of Education of today, which is a commitment to peace. Moving more specifically to what the publication entails, in the next slides, I have drawn up a snapshot of what the AIM working group has developed in the publication that we are going to present in a few minutes. We had a large group of people who were meeting regularly over the past year to develop the handbook that is now put forward. And here I would like to take the opportunity to thank these people. A number of them I know are also in the audience. Some of them today are with me on this panel of speakers. But through having this large group of people participating in this working group, we have identified the 3 domains that that are relevant to contribute to academic capacity. The focus on the individual, both for the academic team, but also to provide the graduates with scholarly aptitudes, so that in this way, both from the academic group and the professional people, we are helping to contribute to a transformation of our profession. At the same time, having an academic capacity building is contributing to strengthening the organization and ultimately the institution. So the handbook is meant, through the work that has been done from this working group, We have identified different domains, some of which will be presented today by the various speakers. And we have identified indicators that each one of us, we can use the handbook to apply in our settings and establish what gaps or what evolvements or what improvements can we put in so that we can develop a strategic development to improve or gain on academic capacity. And therefore, we do hope that these signals and these indicators that have been put together under 10 different sections help the different, each one of us in our institutions to put this handbook into practice. And we do also look forward to having feedback on how this handbook has been applied in practice, and it can contribute to further work which is done within FIP AIM. So I do hope that you will find this publication useful, and we do look forward to receive information, feedback, sharing of experiences, because this is the way how we are all getting this network within FIP AIM to the benefit of each of our institutions. So in the next part of the program later on, we will also deep dive into some of the areas that are covered in this handbook, so that we can give you a better example of what the publication is all about. And I believe that with that introduction, we can now move on to the next part in our program. And it's a pleasure for me to introduce the FIP CEO, Dr. Catherine Duggan, who couldn't join us live today, but we have a message from Dr. Duggan.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the fabulous AIM publication launch webinar entitled Advancing Future Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences, the launch of the FIP AIM Academic Capacity Assessment Handbook. My name is Catherine Duggan. I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at FIP. A great honour to be in this position. And before I start with some words for today's launch, I want to say a huge thank you to all of our amazing officers who worked so hard in the delivery of this publication. With the publication launch today, January the 24th, 2024, coinciding with the International Day of Education, I wanted to take some moments to share thoughts that align with this year's UN Day theme, Learning for Lasting Peace. The first thing I wanted to mention was around advancing pharmacy education, the importance of pharmacy education in shaping future pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists to meet the global healthcare challenges, as highlighted in Advancing Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences throughout the Academic Capacity Assessment Handbook, is cleanly made. We need to create capacity to manage the challenges of today and tomorrow, and therefore we need to be thinking about capacity and how to assess it here and now. Such a handbook also supports FIP's vision and global impact. The collective efforts of FIP AIM members in developing the handbook and its significance in supporting academic institutions globally, in line with our FIP development goals and other policies such as the Nanjing statements, mean they sit front and centre, and they align to everything globally that helps us achieve the shared goals. The handbook offers strategies for academic capacity building in areas such as mentorship, diversity, technology integration, and policy development. And we know as we have come out of the COVID pandemic, we've needed all of these issues to be addressed front and centre. FIP's commitment to supporting pharmacists in crises, increasingly so, and the role of pharmacists in ensuring healthcare resilience and equity is particularly important during emergencies. Therefore, our humanitarian programme is underpinned by such handbooks and ensures that everybody working in academic institutions and learning in academic institutions understands the importance of being there for humanitarian. The impact of conflict on education systems and the powerful role of education in breaking the cycle of health inequities and empowering individuals for informed decision makings is really important to establish education's fundamental role in health equity. I think learning for peace is really important for us all, but particularly when we think about education. And learning for lasting peace means we need to think about a global workforce that is absolutely front and centre. Finally, FIP's efforts to advance global pharmacy practice and education for comprehensive and patient-centred care is fundamental to every pharmacist's role. So therefore, the interconnection, the interrelatability of education and health is fundamental to everything that we need to learn. And as we are launching this fundamental handbook on the 24th of January, International Day of Education, and as the theme is learning for lasting peace, I would like to wish you all a peaceful 2024. Let's all continue to learn. Let's all continue to think about our roles as healthcare professionals to advance pharmacy worldwide. Have a great launch meeting. Thank you again, and good luck.
So with that background, I think we can now move on to start looking at examples of the different sections that are carried in this academic capacity handbook. And I will start by sharing an insight into one of the sections that is included and was identified as a very important factor that contributes to academic capacity building, which is the mentorship, diversity, and internationalization section. And within this area, the working group members have seen from experiences the relevance of recruiting individuals who are passionate and motivated to be part of an academic group and to be part of pharmacy. The mentorship aspect to encourage the learning curve. The fact that we are all working in a setting where there's diversity, equity, and inclusion that are happening, and therefore we need to learn from reflective experiences. And the fourth aspect in this section is the international aspect, because of the value that the internationalization helps in connecting and establishing networks within the academic setting. So in the next slide, I have taken some examples from the section carried in the publication to provide an insight into how the publication is actually developed. And therefore, for each of the four areas that have been captured through the discussion of the working group in this section, we have identified indicators of that could be used to identify either any gaps or to identify status of performance. And with regards to recruiting, one is looking at making sure that one is attracting students at undergraduate and postgraduate education. These are just examples taken from the publication. And that one is also looking at market needs and the relevance and deployability of graduates in terms of ensuring that there is an academic capacity of the graduates that will in turn contribute to pharmaceutical evolvement. The section, the publication also looks at recruiting at faculty level. And finally, one is also looking at how we are providing an inspiration and building our individual people to become leaders, advocate for academia and the pharmaceutical advancement, and be part of innovation. In the second area, we have mentorship, and there are a number of examples which are included as indicators of how this capacity building can happen. whether there are any formal or informal structures for the mentorship to take place, whether there are buddy systems for freshers in the system, and whether the institution actually recognizes the champions that are helping other colleagues to self-reflect and evolve and build their scholarly experience. For the other two areas in this section, carried in the next slide, we can see that for the aspect of diversity, one is looking at how are we supporting our staff to actually handle diversity, and whether they get the resources, they have the necessary support structure, both in terms of resources, time,
collective
sessions, and at the same time, other initiatives could include also sessions where sharing of best practices, so learning from each other and building a capacity by sharing experiences and participating in community outreach activities, so that during this academic capacity building, one is providing the opportunity for academics and the team to actually reflect on realities that are happening outside the academic institution. In the international aspect, one is trying to look at indicators that support the cross-cultural reflections, and therefore whether there are any strategies and structures that support academics to indulge in collaborative teaching innovations. There are facilitators to provide opportunities for joint research projects outside the institution, and the motivation and support for the faculty to actually share experiences at international platforms. So these are included in the publication and put in as a guideline, as aspects that could be used as a guideline to identify where can one increase resources or develop new strategies to support academic capacity building in the area of mentorship, diversity, and internationalization. And with that brief snippet, I would like now we have 6 other areas that have been identified from the program, from the publication, that are today being exposed in this webinar. And therefore, I'd like to move to the next speaker, Professor Lisa Hong, who is the Director of Interprofessional Education at Loma Linda University in the United States. And therefore, I would like to give the floor to Lisa.
Thank you so much, Lillian, and good morning to everybody from California. Next slide, please. In this handbook, the next domain we wanted to address is the professional development, partnerships, and advocacy domain. And so I'll start us off in this domain by discussing the partnership aspect, which focuses on interprofessional education. So whether this is through informal exposure for students or formal planned or structured activities, IPE promotes collaborative learning, and it also promotes a comprehensive approach to patient care, which can also improve efficiency if we can do a better job understanding each other's professional roles. It also will support the production of collaborative, practice-ready, and successful graduates that can work well in interprofessional teams. Next slide, please. So in thinking about the capacity building of IPE, there are many considerations, but an essential one is, do you have the adequate infrastructure? And so do you have access to other professions, and are you lucky enough to have other professions on the same campus? This can improve easier communication and collaboration. Or if not, can you form partnerships with programs and coordinate remote interprofessional education activities? And honestly, because scheduling can be such a barrier to IPE planning, even if we have other programs on campus, virtual or remote activities may improve flexibility. And, during COVID, the shifts to virtual learning really showed us that this can still be successful. Another essential component for IPE is institutional support. So do you have buy-in from students, from faculty, from staff? Do you already have an interprofessional culture? And if not, perhaps you can develop this or strengthen it by establishing task forces, committees, or designating individuals who are passionate about IPE as IPE champions who can then advocate for IPE in their programs. Another aspect is, does your institution have the physical space to hold all of the students or to be able to organize students into small groups for discussion? So for example, at Loma Linda University, where I am, so we have a lot of classrooms that are auditorium style, and that doesn't really foster small group discussions. Additionally, we have over 180 students in the School of Medicine, and our School of Pharmacy has about 50 students currently. And so again, figuring out space can be a challenge. And going back to our discussion about remote or virtual experiences, perhaps that is a way where you can actually accommodate all of these individuals if you are lacking space. Next, kind of thinking about resources. Do you have resources such as, oh, sorry, I meant next bullet point. Yes, so next is resources. And do you have the adequate staff and faculty to coordinate events? In terms of resources, do you have the technology that you need, whether that be web-based software, for example, simulated electronic medical record systems, or perhaps even simulation centers, or high fidelity mannequins? Do you need those for the IPE that you're wanting to hold? Do you have access to platforms for distance learning? Things like Blackboard or Canvas are examples. Next slide, please. So once you have the infrastructure and the buy-in for the why behind why IPE is so important, there are also many considerations for planning or designing IPE activities. And you can organize this into sort of the who, what, where, when, and how. So in designing IPE, the what is, what are the appropriate objectives? What part of the curriculum is the best fit for your IPE that you want to design? And what assessments do you want to include? How this can be achieved is by aligning learning outcomes of the IPE for each professional program, and then to make sure that you are aligning that content with standard guidelines such as the IPEC core competencies. Those were recently updated in 2023. Also, the design can undergo continuing quality improvement. So by collecting and implementing feedback from faculty and students, you can continue to improve any IPE that you've originally designed. And then when designing IP activities, it's also necessary to determine who should participate. And so is this a curricular IPE event where it's required for all students to participate? Or is it elective where only some students are participating and perhaps it's on a voluntary basis? The other part of the who is that the design stage should include input from multiple healthcare professionals and make sure that it's not a one-dimensional design. Lastly, the where. So whether the IPE will take place in person or online. And then if you hold it online, does the activity need to be synchronous or can it be asynchronous? These are all different considerations when designing IPE. Next slide, please. The last focus areas for capacity building in IPE are faculty training and student assessment. So it's important that IPE-focused training is provided to all facilitators of IPE, and that can include faculty, residents, or any practitioners that you're inviting to help with the event. The FIP tools that are available are one place to start. And then perhaps one of the most challenging aspects that I believe for IPE is student assessment. So there are many published surveys or rubrics that have validation evidence. A resource that I like to use to look for these tools is nexus.org. However, these don't always align with what you may want to assess, and thus they can require some modifications to best fit your activity or your objectives. But again, the assessment should tie back to standard guidelines like the IPEC core competencies or the FIP global competency framework. Additionally, IPE should be assessed within and across professions. And I could probably talk about the assessment challenges for a long time, but while it's difficult, we want to try to go beyond perspectives and attitudes of individual students. Because we don't have a lot of time to go in depth with this, I'm going to end it there, but happy to answer questions at the end. And we hope that this information assists you in building or strengthening your IPE at your institution. And so at this point, I'd like to pass it over to Sean Gleason to discuss the continuing professional development and advocacy portions of this domain.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. Next slide, please. So as Lisa mentioned, I'll be sharing the discussion of professional development, and I'll be talking about continuing professional development, leadership, and advocacy. So starting off with assessing our continuing professional development, or CPD, if you look at the handbook and the table of focus areas, you'll notice a number of focus areas that really align with that very important question that we often ask in FIP when designing educational events is our education meeting the needs? Is it meeting local needs? And in this case, is it also meeting professional needs or needs of the individual? So the focus areas that you'll see discussed in the handbook that relate to that is, first of all, is your CPD meeting local needs? And the way to establish this is it integrated with professional practice? So say, for example, maybe in your local area, you just achieved prescriptive authority. So a good way to assess your CPD there is your CPD aligned with providing skill sets to help support that advancement of the profession? You can also look at changes that are taking place as a result of accrediting agency requirements or professional societies and so on, or maybe even at your local institution. So that's one focus area and some indicators for addressing local needs. The next, and probably one of the most important ones, is your CPD addressing is it addressing emerging or future needs? And those are the types of educational events that are going to keep us moving forward. And some good examples that I think we've all probably seen a lot of lately are educational events that are addressing artificial intelligence, whether that's in the clinical setting or even how we're using it in academic settings. So those are good indicators for, are you meeting future needs, professional needs? And then last but not least is, are you meeting the needs of the individual practitioners and professionals? And ways that, when you're assessing your CPD, ways that you can establish that is, take a look at, are you providing an established culture for lifelong learning? Some things that you can use to, really say, yeah, we are, is, do you have regular learning events? Do you have a regular CPD series of offerings? Are you regularly encouraging your employees, your team members to pursue new skills? Do you have learning groups and so on? And last but not least, a good motivation or incentivization for learning is there CPD required by your learning agency? And if not, is it maybe required by the institution or the position? So those are good ways to really determine, are you meeting the needs of all the areas mentioned there? Next slide, please. Next, a great focus area or indicator for continuing professional development is, do your CPD offerings meet diverse learning formats? And the graphic here on the left is something I pulled from something that was actually non-pharmacy related, but you can see here the different types of learning events that have been talked about already and will be talked about is, reflection, mentoring, and practice. And so if you take a look at your CPD offering, that's a question to ask you are your offerings being provided in varied settings? The ones I just mentioned, or are they online? Are they live, whether small classes or seminars? Could you even be providing longitudinal education, portfolio offerings for keeping track of education? I know that's offered in a few states here in the US. Things like reflection. So basically, again, when you're assessing your capacity, is take a look at, are you offering a variety of events? Next, a new theme going on in education, I think we're all aware of, is not only is it classroom-based, but is your education maybe designed to be taking place in the workplace setting? In which case, have you maybe developed interestable professional activities that could be aligned to your CPD events? Next, is your learning for an individual, or is it maybe for group learning? And then the other thing that is becoming more popular is the size of your learning event or your credential. Yes, we could all offer full degrees that help advance our profession, but real popular these days are the notion of micro-credentials, whether that's a graduate certificate, a CE certificate, or even we're seeing more and more online badges. These are also ways that you can diverse your continuing professional development series. Next slide, please. And then importantly, as we see in all of these, it's important to make sure that you're assessing your learning events. So these are things to address your academic capacity. Are you offering professional growth of your individual learner? Perhaps send out a survey. Are you maybe addressing the impact on your community? Maybe you've had so many learning events or have affected so many community members. And if you've offered a clinical CPD event, maybe you could look at patient outcomes in your local region to help support that. But again, assessing your learning events is always important when developing your academic capacity for CPD. Next slide, please. Moving on to two topics of leadership and advocacy. I'll start off with leadership. And I know like recently we went through our accreditation, and when it got to, are we addressing leadership? Unless it's sometimes a little bit, it's not straightforward, and unless you have a class that is outright named leadership. But I bet if we all really take a look at what's offered within our curricular setting or our professional setting, there are other ways that we can really say, yeah, we are addressing leadership. And one of them is, have you developed a cultivation have you developed a leadership mindset? And ways you can do that is really look at, are you offering leadership training for, advanced practitioners, later stages in their career, all the way to day one of a student entering a pharmacy school, and ways you can do that, start developing that leadership mindset is maybe even having informal leadership opportunities. Say, for example, if you have small group case discussions, can you always make sure that you provide a student discussion leader? So a number of ways you can start really inculcating that leadership mindset. Next is keep in mind that it's always important to have diversity in your leadership. And leadership can be developed in many settings, whether it's in the academic setting, in the laboratory setting. You could have a project leader, or even in clinical practice. A good way to demonstrate that you're developing leadership within clinical practice is perhaps you have the layered learning model where, the practitioner is training the resident, who's training the fourth-year student, and so on. All of those indirectly or even directly provide leadership opportunities. institutional support is always important. And then again, we get to that assessment. Are there standardized metrics? These could be offered through things like surveys. Keep in mind that assessment can be multi-directional. You could be assessing leaders above you and below you. And again, if things are in the workplace setting, you could have interestable professional activities that are designed to meet leadership aspects. Next slide, please. And next, I'd like to talk about advocacy. I think the very fact that we're all on this presentation today, this session today, talks about our interest in the wonders of our profession and sharing that. But sometimes when we look at how do we provide that, again, like leadership, it's not quite as clear, or it's not quite as easy. But so some things you could look at when assessing your capacity for advocacy is, what education or training are you providing on the role of advocacy? And I think when we think of advocacy, the main area we think of are, healthcare improvement and policy formation. And absolutely that's important. So are you providing opportunities for students and practitioners to get involved with that? I'd like to also mention that advocacy for patients is important. I know in our interprofessional course here at the University of Colorado, one of the most important areas that our students comment on is learning about importance of advocating for the patient. So keep in mind, anywhere you do that is also getting to the notion of advocacy. Do you have a platform for policy and stakeholder engagement? Do you have opportunities to maybe go to your local governmental organization? Do you have professional organizations that provide networks for collaboration with healthcare teams and policy makers? And again, we always have to assess what we're doing. So do you have metrics? And so do you have methods to evaluate effectiveness of this? How many opportunities have you provided? How many students or practitioners have been out talking about the profession and so on? So I invite you to go back to the handbook and delve into it a little bit more in detail, looking at all the focus areas in the metrics. This was just a sampling, but it's been my pleasure to share this with you. And so with that, I will pass it on to my good friend, Pierre Moreau.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much for your presentation and for the introduction. So I will dive into another perspective that is included also in the handbook. And it's about ways of measuring capacity and capability of the teaching staff, mainly in your schools. So to have a kind of a metric or indicators of having the right capacity. So I will walk you through this section. So for those who don't know me, I'm a professor at University of Kuwait College of Pharmacy, and I've been dean for 16 years in 2 schools. First in Montreal, Canada, and now I've been dean in Kuwait as well. And I finished my second term in 2022. So I do have some experience of measuring things and trying to build capacity, and I'll share some of the things that I did along the way. So the next slide, it discusses why it's important to measure and make sure that you have the right capacity and capability of your staff. First, it's a question of quality, of course. If you have enough staff, you can deliver quality education. And also your staff will be more, let's say, prone and less, overworked. So they will develop innovation. They will want to engage into maybe new ways of teaching, active learning modalities, and so on. Because when your capacity is very low, people are doing, the minimum and trying to just keep their head above the water. They having a good capacity also will provide a reasonable teaching load and a good student to staff interactions, so that students can, be coming to your staff and getting the proper guidance for their education, and because the staff is available and for them to go to. The other important is to have this a very disciplinary representation. As you know, pharmacy is a complex profession. It's not getting simpler. It's getting more complex. We have, of course, the disease spectrum is very wide, but also the types of drugs that we have are getting, I think, more complex with biologicals and others as well. And it's and the settings in which pharmacists can practice is also quite wide. So this means that there is a lot of teaching to do in terms of varied expertise that is needed from the staff, and as well the importance of having pharmacists as part of your staff to make sure that they provide good examples to the profession, and that the teaching is relevant as well for the students that are going to be evolving in this profession as well. Another reason why it's important to always be on top of your capacity and capability is that, as we know, the profession is evolving, so you need to reassess regularly. Do you have the proper staff to, for instance, tackle new professional roles like we saw with vaccination during COVID? Pharmacists started vaccinating. This needs education, training, could be through CPD like Sean discussed, but now it's probably already integrated into undergrad programs to make sure that the next wave of pharmacists are already trained on vaccination. That's just one example of many where you have to have the proper staff to provide this education. Next slide, please. So how do you measure what is a good quantitative metric to support your recruitment? And to be honest, when I came to Kuwait, I was told by the vice president of academic affairs, who was responsible for hiring, that we had enough academic staff, that the ratio of number of students per academic staff was even better than other schools. So there was no need for us to recruit any more staff. And then I went back and made some calculations. And what I did actually, and I provide an example here. It's not in this example is not in the handbook, so you have something privilege here. So for instance, if there's a program with 90 credit hours and there's 167 students per year, so that's 500 students. And let's say you have 25 academic staff, that means you have a ratio of 20 students per academic staff, and each staff will teach 3.6 credit hours. Now you have a pharmacy program, which is longer. Most professional programs are longer. You have smaller cohorts, so smaller size of batches, 100 students per year, but you have 5 years to teach. And all these years, of course, are different courses. So the number of credit hours is not 90, but 150, and you still have 25 academic staff. Then your ratio will be the same, 20 students per academic staff. So the university will say, well, you're fine. You don't need anybody else, but your staff is actually teaching 6 credit hours each, which is nearly double what the other colleagues from, let's say, the science department is doing. So I used this metric to convince our university that we needed more academic staff, and we actually moved from a 5-year to a 7-year program, a PharmD program, with more credit hours. And now, instead of having 31 academic staff, when I came to Kuwait in 2014, we have now more than 50 in our school, and we have about 15 scholars on training. So we'll have a much higher, more than double our staff to be able to teach all these diverse credit hours that pharmacy requires. So this is one way you can convince your institution to increase your number of academic staff, because it shouldn't be based on the ratio with number of students, but based on how many credit hours you need to teach. And the same can be used to identify disciplines where staff are lacking. So for instance, if the number of credit hours in a discipline is very high, but the number of staff is the same as in other departments, they are in deficit. So you can also calculate and try to adjust the number of staff in each department based on how many credit hours they provide in terms of teaching. So the next slide is now looking at another angle, which is more of a qualitative assessment. So building capabilities. As we know, some non-pharmacist academic staff don't know exactly what pharmacists do on a day-to-day basis. And some career academic staff actually, practiced maybe like me 20 or something years ago and kind of forget a little bit and they don't know how the profession evolved. So I think it's important to have a good mix of academic staff, some being, I'll call them career academic staff, responsible for teaching and learning of basic science and doing research. But I think it's important to also have practitioners and also, of course, preceptors. And some of your staff, I think, should be pharmacists to provide, again, a relevant education in some areas. So other metrics could be a number of pharmacists that are part of your teaching staff. So number of pharmacist academic staff divided by your total number of academic staff. You have to decide what is your target? Is it 50%? If it is, then you have to check, where you're at, and if it's something you want, or if you think it should be 70% in your case. So you have to define your target, but these are important to measure and to keep track of to make sure that the education is relevant for pharmacists. It's the same with the number of practitioners. You can determine how many practitioners you have in terms of your total number of academic staff. And again, you have to determine what is the correct ratio. And for us, the ratio is linked with the number of credit hours that are taught into, medication therapy management and other courses that require practitioners to provide, examples and provide the proper education and the proper experience to our students. Same with preceptors. You can also determine, depending on how many students you have, do you want a one-to-one supervision model or a pyramidal model or group supervision? So depending on that, you have to probably calculate how many preceptors you will need to provide the education. So these are more of the quantitative aspects of building capacity and capability. So my last slide is that these metrics can also be used to look at gaps, and gaps can be found in, for instance, academic administration positions that maybe are not fulfilled. So this is something that's easy to measure. How many you have the dean, vice deans, department chairs, and maybe some positions are vacant. And this is also something important. How do you make them more attractive, and so on. Again, we discussed a little bit before the areas of expertise that are not or poorly covered, especially maybe some emerging areas of expertise that are being, let's say, part of the new scope of practice of pharmacists, that you have to adapt and make sure that you also provide this education to the new pharmacists that are in your school, and also look at indicators and their targets that are not met, and we talked about that. Preceptors, number of sites, maybe ratio of teaching in different disciplines. So all these things can identify gaps, and you will be well positioned to discuss with your university administration to try to get the proper amount and diversity of people you need to make sure that the pharmacy program is of quality, and that, again, your students are well prepared to tackle their new career. So this is the section I had to discuss with you. And I think the next person in line is Rajani.
Thank you, Pierre. It's a pleasure to share the platform with such wonderful people today. Hello, I'm Rajani Shakya from Kathmandu University, Nepal. And I'm sure that everyone in this meeting is having good time. And the domain I'm talking today, actually, myself and my colleague, Dr. Renuka, will be sharing this chapter, this domain. Next slide, please. Okay. Research and scholarly activities, these are the crucial pillars of pharmacy education, playing a key role in advancing profession and improving health care outcomes. These are important accomplishments for the advancement of knowledge and learning, advancement of innovation, continuing quality of academic programs, and meeting the needs of society or country as a whole. Pharmacy schools and colleges who want to achieve academic excellence value these activities as an essential component. Next slide, please. Now, what are the importance of these activities in any academic institutions? Fostering research and scholarly activities will lead to innovation and knowledge generation, and transfer of new knowledge and technology diffusion will lead to economic and social benefit to the society, including improvement in health. Research enriches the teaching learning environment. Students gain many long-term benefit from research experiences during training. Participation in research experiences offers them an opportunity for professional growth and competitiveness. These well-trained individuals will cultivate these research skills in other trainees and peers that can lead to exponential growth of this skill. This will help train the next generation of researchers. Engagement in such activities is also essential for faculty members for their own professional development. Excellence in education underpinned by the impactful research is the foundation for a world-class university with academic excellence. Next slide, please. For fostering scholarly activity and research in any academic institution, there are some core elements that need to be considered. You can see them in this slide. They are technical facilities and infrastructure, research funding, institutional support, faculty involvement, outcomes, and collaborations. We'll be going through these in brief now. Next slide, please. Coming to the first focus area, technical facilities and infrastructure. We all know that the conduct of research requires a variety of physical and infrastructures, institutional infrastructures, including laboratories, offices, and other spaces, research equipments, and diverse organizational elements. Adequate research resources are needed to cutting-edge research, whether it is in medicinal chemistry, pharmaceutics, clinical, or in any other areas of research. Well-equipped laboratories of adequate size with state-of-the-art equipments and other resources are essential platform to enhance quality and productivity of any research projects. It is equally important that along with availability of the equipment in the laboratories, their maintenance, that is important, with regular calibration, validation for the results to be considered reliable. Other resources and services like library resources, relevant databases, electronic resources, and software enhance the research infrastructure and enable researchers to develop and implement innovative research for improving health or other outcomes. Apart from these, presence of environmental control is also essential. Environmental control may include, for example, monitoring temperature, humidity, routine particulate or microbiological monitoring in labs, regular monitoring and corrective actions whenever needed will help in generation of reliable, robust, and reproducible data. Security and procedures in labs, as per the standard requirements, are some other indicators. Basic laboratory security guidelines must be known by all, followed by all. Hazardous materials must be securely stored in lab. There should be a system for giving access to the research space, restricting labs to authorized person only. These can help prevent many problems. These things, though may look small, may look very common, sometimes can influence the workflow, efficiency, or credential of the research activity, sometimes to greater extent, and thus these should be taken seriously. Next slide, please. Next is the research funding. Research funding help improve quality and productivity of research by providing resources, equipment, and facilities that support research objectives. Funding for research enables the researcher to pass through the path of ideation to innovation and make a substantial contribution to knowledge. Indicators for this focus area may be the availability and number of research grants received and amount of funding in the last few years, maybe for the last 5 years or so. Government bodies and other national and international funding agencies provide research grants to faculties and students with the aim of promoting quality and impact of research activity. Faculty members and researchers should be aware of this and should be encouraged to seek for such funding resources. However, it is not uncommon to see potentially valuable research ideas failing simply because of unavailability or insufficiency of funding. This happens mainly with younger faculty members and students. Those who couldn't succeed in getting external funding can be supported by internal institutional research grant, provision of intramural research grant, or seed money for undertaking a research project in the university will be very much encouraging for the young faculty members. External research funding received or the internal funding provided by the institution itself to support the research activities increase institutions' reputation and influence by showcasing their expertise, achievements, and contribution to the society. This can help expand the connection, visibility, and also can help institution to attract more students, sponsors, donors, and enhance its profile and the ranking in the academic world. Hence, it's very essential. Next slide, please. Next is about institutional support in research and scholarly activity. We know that performance and reputation of academic institution is often measured in terms of research outcomes, such as research publications, patents, copyrights, research grant received, consultancy provided, etc., etc. Therefore, there should be facilitative research promotion policy in the institution. Percentage of annual budget allocated for research activity promotion can be one of the indicators for assessing any academic institution's commitment to improve research capacity. Availability of research-based courses in undergraduate and postgraduate curricula can be another indicator. There is widespread agreement that academic programs should provide students with research experience. Practice of inculcating research culture in young minds will improve their learning outcome. Though there may be practical issues and limited resources for this, it is not totally impossible to provide research experience to the students. There can be various approaches for introducing research culture in academic year curriculum. For example, research experiences can be integrated by replacing standard laboratory courses with innovation-based research course. Next, we can also include separately credited project work or dissertation in the course curriculum. Involvement of students in the research activities made in any of the ways to any extent will help to develop the core skill for lifelong learning that will be important throughout students' career as a pharmacist or researcher. Academic institutions' commitment to research can also be assessed by availability of research-based programs in the institution and also students' involvement in those programs. Research-based programs like Master of Research, MRes degree, doctorate degree can help in strengthening research activities of the institution. There can be other indicators for institutional support in promoting this type of research activity, like motivating its faculty members, students to publish papers in high-quality index journal with good impact factor. Academic institutions can make a policy that each faculty member is required to publish minimum of 1 research paper every year in index journal, or PhD scholars are required to publish at least 1 research paper per year during their tenure, or all students who are pursuing postgraduate programs are desired to publish a research paper during their tenure as a postgraduate student in index journal, something like that. Institution can also encourage faculties to make publications by introducing an incentive scheme. Institution can allocate certain amount of incentive to the faculty according to the impact factor of the journal in which they have made the publication. Likewise, cost of registration for filing patents by faculty member or PhD students can be supported by the institution. And in case of knowledge or technology transfer for commercial purpose, the royalty earned can be shared between university and the person involved on mutually agreed terms and conditions. Another way to support faculty members for research work is by considering research outputs as a separate domain during their promotion, tenure, or appraisals, which I guess is in practice in most of the institutions. Research activities should be considered as one of the components when estimating workload of the faculty members. These policies of the academic institutions reflect its commitment to strengthen research and scholarly activities. Next slide, please. This is the last slide I will be talking. This is about faculty members' involvement. This is also a core element in this domain. Faculty's involvement in research is a necessity, not only for their professional growth, but also important for academic purpose of the institution. Their involvement in scholarly activities can be assessed by estimating the hours allocated per week by the faculty member for research activities, number of ongoing research projects, number of research proposals submitted for grant application, participation of faculty member in conferences, seminars for dissemination of their research outcomes also reflect their involvement. Sometimes institution may find difficulty getting their faculties to be actively involved in research. Faculty members on the other side may be facing several challenges like lack of research skill, limited facilities, lack of resources, time, lack of funding, etc. A supportive environment would help faculty researcher boost their confidence and become motivated to get involved in the research. I would like to stop here, and I request my colleague Renuka to continue with the remaining core elements of this domain.
Thank you, Rajani. Next slide, please. So at the start of our presentation, Rajani has already introduced to say that the scholarly activities and research expectation section of this handbook is arranged according to 5 core elements, and Rajani has covered the first 4 core elements, which includes the technical facilities, research funding, institutional support, and faculty involvement. I, on the other hand, will just focus on outcomes and collaborations. Under outcome and collaboration, the first thing first, we want to look at research outcome. So I've listed the indicators that are available in the handbook on the far left column in this slide, where you can see you want to look at the number of publications by faculty members in ranked journals, in non-ranked journals, involvement of your undergraduate students in research projects, the number of patents obtained or filed, number of technology transfer that allow research from lab to the industry, product development that leads to commercialization, research activity that actually impacts practice or the profession or policy. So these are very important because it indicates the research quality of the faculty. You're producing industry relevant outcomes, you're producing research ready graduates, and also allows an opportunity for alternative source of income for the institutional, eventually impacting your reputation, the industry and profession. So I've also listed some of the strategies for implementation that you can consider upon assessing, using the indicators as an assessment tool, and then you should be able to think about where are the gaps and identify strategies to fill the gap. Look at the trends in publication, look at the trends in your involvement of undergraduate students in research. Set achievable goal based on your own resources, and then provide support as necessary. For example, article publication charges, manuscript clinics, writing clinics, grant writing clinics targeted for certain grants, protected time for your faculty member. I think also, there's also a need to look at the role of senior academic member as acting as a mentor for the younger academic member, so that there's some guidance for these younger members to build their research profile and also build their publication output, obtaining grant, postgraduate supervision. There's also need to look at how do we remunerate or recognize these academic mentors and mentees based on their contribution and their output. I also want to bring to your attention, for example, we do have the indicators, number of patents, number of technology transfer, number of product development. In my opinion, it's not that academics doesn't know how to do. The faculty members probably are already doing work in the research, but they're not trained. They don't have enough support to be able to bring it up to the filing process, up to the knowledge transfer stage, up to the product development stage. So I think as a faculty, as an institution, we also need to look at if there's a gap, that's the gap, then provide support, a consultant that can help this faculty member to actually know what to do in terms of the process involved, the legality involved, provide support for the academic to achieve these indicators. Next slide, please. Next, I'm going to talk about research degree awarded. So you also want to look at what is the annual enrollment of your master's and doctoral students, what are the graduation and attrition rates of these students, because they are very important to help to support the faculty members in the research outputs that I have mentioned previously. It also helps to build capacity, whether within the institution or within the nation, build the staff profile in terms of their postgraduate supervision. So similarly, there's a need to set achievable goal. One way is to look at strategic offering of scholarship, whether you want to NT staff from industry, staff from academic institution. But if you want to do so, then you need to think about flexible residency requirements for your programs. At the same time, you need to have a very good postgraduate support and facilities to foster this research degree programs. Next slide, please. Next, I'm going to touch about participation in conferences and seminar. As a school, we want to assess how the number of national or international conferences or seminars that are attended by faculty members and students for presenting their paper. And most importantly, number of national or international conferences that the school organizes. So this will allow you to see where is the gap and provide or design strategies to fill in the gap. You can think about conference funding for staff and student, also of course strategic planning. You need to plan to say what is doable within the period, what is my target. So see where is the gap. For example, there are so many conferences happening these days, but you want to see how do I provide a platform that brings academic community to meet, present and foster knowledge. So where's the gap? When do I want to do this? Whom do I want to target? And form committees so that to implement the strategies that you have planned for. Next slide, please. Next, I'm going to touch about collaboration. You want to assess how many MOU or MOAs that you have signed with national and international universities and practice sites. You want to measure the number of cooperation with pharmaceutical industry that you have done together with the faculty member that produces research output, availability of or the number of faculty member or student exchange programs, or number of staff or student that have went for these programs, because these are very important. This collaboration network that you build is very important. It fits into the publication, into the research outputs that we have talked about earlier, also helps to provide the industry relevant outcomes that we talked about earlier as well. So similarly, I think there needs to be strategic planning and a committee to look at this and say, okay, here's my target plan for 3 years, and this year we will do this, and there's assign people within the school to look at this, and I think that's achievable to that. Next slide, please. So while we have talked about the core elements, we talk about the large elements. This slide here is just to highlight to you that we also need to look at data security, archival, and computer system to support the research work within the school. There must be proper documentation of the work done, of the SOPs, human resource, not just faculty members. You also need to look at adequate number of, for example, lab attendants, lab technicians that can support the faculty members in their work. With that, that's the end of my presentation. I would like to pass on the floor to Muhammad Baraka, who will talk about technology and digitalization. Thank you.
Thanks, Rinoka, and well done. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed Baraka. I'm Associate Professor of Clinical Pharmacy and the Head of Pharmacy Department at Fatima College of Health Sciences. Today, we are celebrating a very special occasion, which is the International Day of Education. And before starting, I would like to acknowledge the great efforts done by my colleagues, Professor Carmen Garcia, the Vice Dean of Teaching, Students and Internationalization from University San Pablo, Spain, and my colleague, Prof. Paula Gomez, who is Deputy Vice Rector for Internationalization, Academic Coordinator of International Relations at the same university. Next slide, please, Janwan. So today we'll talk about the technology and digitalization. And as you know, we are living in a world that is very connected. We have the internet, we have the online shopping, we have the technological tools that we can use to improve our courses delivery, assessment, and everything. So next slide, please, Janwan. So as you all know, digital transformation is reshaping every aspect of our life, and education is no exception. So especially after the pandemic, we started to use a lot of tools when we moved suddenly to the online education. So a lot of digital tools are to be used and to be utilized in delivery of our courses. Next slide, please. So it's not only about education, but it's also about digital health, because we are pharmacists. Our graduates are going to deliver healthcare using such important tools, like using wearables and sensors to collect data from patients. And you can see here one of the tools that can be used to measure your blood pressure every day, 24/7, and streamline this data to your physician, who can see this on a dashboard. Next slide, please. Other sensors and wearables and smartwatches that can take your ECG and can measure your blood glucose level, again, 24/7 remotely, without having to go to a healthcare facility or being inspected by a healthcare provider. Next slide, please. When we look around us and we see in the market smart pharmacies that are completely run by robots, I think this is a kind of responsibility for us to think about and prepare our future graduates to be ready for this future, which is already here. Next slide, please. Another thing, now we can see hospitals that are delivering medications for the patients at home using drones and using autonomous cars or robots to deliver the medications for patients at home. Next slide, please. We can also see in some parts of the world, like United Arab Emirates, where I'm living, the government is assigning the one and only Minister for Artificial Intelligence in the world. And here you can see we are living in a world that's focusing too much on utilizing artificial intelligence and other digital tools in education and also in delivery of healthcare. Next slide, please. So since we are going back now to academia, focusing on the how to assess our capacity building regarding technology and digitalization, here we need to talk about the technology infrastructure first. Do we have a reliable infrastructure in our academic institutes? Do we include the hardware and software required and the high-speed internet that will enable us to cope with that future and with that current situation? Do we have equitable access to the technical support for all students and faculty staff as well? Next slide, please. In addition to this, faculty training in digital tools is very important. We are like digital immigrants. We are not digital natives like our students, but in order to utilize such tools, we need training, and our academicians need training and support on using such digital tools. There are so many tools now that have been used, especially during the pandemic, to improve students' engagement for online education. And for these things, you need also to get acquainted with their presence and utilization. You need training. You need to know how to use such things and how to integrate them in the curriculum. Next slide, please. So quality assurance will have to be also revamped and in order to cope with such changes. So you need to ensure consistent content delivery. It's not just about online delivery. You need to assess the quality of such online courses. You need to assess the quality of the materials you are posting to your students. You need to assess and make sure you are complying with the high educational standards. Add to this, using AI in pharmacy education. Nowadays, AI and different AI tools like ChatGPT, like Google Bard, like so many other tools can help you as an academician to prepare your materials, to develop your PowerPoint presentations, to develop other activities for your students that are engaging, that are supporting, that are giving feedback. All these things we need to learn about them. Next slide, please. The availability of technology infrastructure is very important, as we said before. You need a reliable internet connection. You need a plethora of software applications and IT support. You need also training and skill development and capacity building for your faculty, staff, and also students. Next slide, please. Student engagement and interaction is very important nowadays to be following and to be supported by exposure to such a variety of digital tools. Feedback can also be one of the things that can be supported and facilitated to be given by AI tools and other digital tools. As we said before, quality assurance and standardization. There are a lot of tools that can help you standardize these processes. Next slide, please. Assessment and proctoring. I think during the pandemic, one of our challenges was how to protect the academic integrity. And we heard a lot about stories of cheating and all of these things. And I think a lot of software applications have been developed at the time to protect such integrity. Data privacy and security, knowing what to share and how to share and where this data is going, the data of your institution and students, where are they going? You need to be vigilant about this. Next slide, please. Intellectual property and copyright issues. These things are also, we need to generate discussion about these things that we were overlooking in the past, or in some parts of the world, we don't think about it too much. Regulation and the ethical considerations are also something that we should adhere to their guidelines. Next slide, please. So the role of faculty has been expanded, has been changed, and for that reason, the decision-making process needs also to be changed to cope with such things. And professional development has to take in consideration this new rule for the faculty. And I think my colleague Hanan will talk now about professional development. Integration within the curriculum, and I think when we get exposed to international accreditation bodies, we think a lot about how to integrate such digital tools in our curricula and how to use them properly. Next slide, please. When we talk about integration of AI and the other digital tools in the curriculum, we come to think about our PLOs and CLOs and whether we need to change this. I think something like Bloom's taxonomy, we are all aware of Bloom's taxonomy and how to derive and write high quality PLOs and CLOs based on Bloom's taxonomy. But our colleagues in Oregon State University talked about how to revisit and review Bloom's taxonomy and rewrite it, taking in consideration the AI capabilities, what AI can provide to us, and what human skills can still be there to support or to work together with AI being empowered by such tools. So something like this we need to think about while writing our PLOs and CLOs for the future. Next slide, please. Again, when we talk about the delivery of our academic programs, we need also to think about not only digital education, but digital health that includes so many things that our pharmacists or future pharmacists should know, like telehealth and telepharmacy, using mobile applications to treat certain diseases. And here we can call them digital therapeutics, robotics and automation, using virtual reality to treat some mental disorders or pain management, artificial intelligence in identification of diseases or identification of specific drugs to treat specific patients. I believe the integration of AI in the future delivery of practice will change the face of evidence-based medicine forever. Using voice assistants, sensors, and wearables, like we said, using pharmabots to at least answer trivial questions of patients or frequently answered questions and leave the cognitive skills, freeing up enough space for you to do the cognitive skills. I think that is something we need to think about. Next slide, please. From where came these digital health categories? I think they came from all these things. When you put the patient in the center and use consumers and use smartphone cameras, clinical trial tools for better selection of eligible individuals to be included in the clinical trials, the virtual assistants, the telemedicine, the virtual physician, and all these tools have generated the momentum to think about the digital health and how to include it in the curriculum. This is something that's very important, and we need to think about it, to include it in our curricula, not only to think about the digital education. Next slide, please. Going back to the education, we said that in order to improve the environments, the digital environment, we need training and support. We need flexibility in adapting and adopting the best practices, using the best pedagogical tools or approaches while delivering our curricula. Next slide, please. Well, acceptability and buy-in from faculty staff is something that is very important. And I believe successful implementation and showcasing the positive outcomes, again, identifying the champions, the heroes, and supporting them is something that is very important. Reliability of application of AI in education processes and sharing the best practices will help us improve the delivery using such digital tools. Next slide, please. Okay, now after talking about all this, I think everyone will say, well, these digital tools will replace us. I believe this will not happen anytime soon. I believe the best way, instead of thinking about the digital tools as a threat for us, I think, like in the next slide, we need to think about using them as things that empower us, not threaten us. Next slide, Jinwen. Like I would like to say here, don't think like these AI tools or these technological tools will replace you. However, I think people who are using such tools will in the future replace people who are not using them. Thanks so much for your attention and see you later. Thanks, Jenwin. Hanan, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Baraka, for the introduction. And it's always challenging to be the last presenter after such fruitful and amazing presentation. Next slide, please. I will try to dive quickly into our topic, which is innovation in program and why is it important for the capacity building. In the journey of pharmacy education, the spotlight is on transformative innovation through introduction of pioneering programs, fortification of faculty capabilities, and a concerted effort is always made to shape a pharmaceutical workforce that not only meets but exceeds the demands of the future. The most practical way to embrace the innovation is through the implementation of new courses and programs that are strategically designed to be seamlessly integrated in the existing curriculum. Of course, it is not recommended that we would throw all our curriculum, all the curriculum, and renew it. It is just integrate some new courses. This could be manifested as elective, providing students the freedom to explore specific areas of interest. Also, co-curricular engagement that bring classroom theories to life and blend with graduation projects that provide students with real-world application for the newfound knowledge. Also, extracurricular activities that are vibrant and dynamic, like workshop and seminar that extend beyond the traditional boundaries of the classroom. These experiences are not merely supplementary, but integral in shaping well-prepared professionals. Pharmacy education institutions are proactively adapting to the changing environment. They are expanding their offering beyond traditional pharmacy program to include specialized diplomas in areas like pharmaceutical technology and pharmaceutical sciences. Moreover, micro-credential programs and postgraduate study featuring specialized courses, masters, and PhD are becoming increasingly prevalent. These deliver focused, skill-based learning that directly addresses the evolving needs of today's workforce. By blending theoretical knowledge again with practical application, students gain a competitive edge in the ever-changing pharmaceutical landscape. What's more, or what is good today to apply, is the introduction of dual degree program that provides students with a unique opportunity to acquire a diverse set of skills. Not only do these programs enable them to save time, but they also open doors to broader range of career opportunities. By embracing these advancement in pharmaceutical education, students are better equipped to meet the demands of rapidly evolving industry while maximizing their professional potential. In order to successfully implement new courses and programs, it is crucial to enhance the capabilities of our faculty in both teaching methodologies and subject expertise. Keeping our faculty at the forefront of education requires regular updates in our faculty development programs, and I think this point was covered before by my colleagues. Successfully launching new courses and programs poses various challenges. We are facing different challenges as the need to adjust teaching schedules, secure financial resources, and ensure availability of qualified staff. The expansion of infrastructure is also a vital aspect that demands attention. Moreover, it is crucial to align these initiatives with market needs and meet expectation of our students. To this dynamic landscape, also quality assurance emerges as a key player in maintaining the consistency and the effectiveness of educational innovation. Next slide, please. Now we'll have several focus points that we should take in consideration while introducing new faculty courses or program. The first one is the flexibility of program bylaws. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The flexibility of the program bylaws. Adaptability is the key to our program policies. And I think the most important point in this flexibility is not only in the flexibility of the bylaw, it's the institution that shows or demonstrate readiness for professional development. The facilities and the financial support was covered by my colleagues, so I will go for now the faculty training programs that should cover, or the faculty should be quite ready to teach these new programs. These new programs should align with the student needs and the market needs, identifying the skills and qualification that are required by the new jobs. This is done by surveying the student to ensure that they are practice ready upon graduation and engaging in dialogue with stakeholders to recognize areas for consideration in new courses and programs. Next slide, please. Student registration and feedback is another important point. Encouraging diverse student registration and active participation while ensuring the equity across various programs and courses, providing postgraduate opportunities for pharmacy graduates from diverse backgrounds, and collecting feedback for on student engagement and challenges and improvement suggestion, and implementing all these improvement in a corrective measure. Finally, assessment method and certification. We should always evaluate the effectiveness of new assessment method for the new courses or the new activities implemented, and we should advocate for the certification of these courses and activities to increase their attractiveness. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you for being with us.
So thank you to the panel of speakers who have provided an insight into some of the sections. We do not have time to indulge in other questions. I know we had a number of questions on the Q&A box, which we have responded to. And if you have more information, please get in touch with FIP AIM through our respective email. And now I'd like to pass on to a guest who has joined our panelists today, Professor Abi Kalaha, who is the FIP Global Lead on Quality Assurance for Pharmacy Education, who has an announcement and an invitation to us all.
Thank you so much, my colleague. This is really a privilege and honor to be here with you today. I think we all agree that assessment is a key for what we do in education on this very important day of international education. I wanted to remind you, my name is Abi Kahali. I am the Dean of School of Pharmacy at South University in beautiful Savannah, Georgia. I'm also the Quality Assurance Lead for FIP. So FIP took the lead on several initiatives for quality assurance. And some of you, including my colleague, took part of publishing a journal article for pharmacy education on a crosswalk between the accreditation at the national level, which is the ACPE and the Nanjing Statement. We also, my colleague and I, took also the lead on an article, in addition to that, a book chapter specifically on quality assurance with the competency-based education book that FIP published. So now we would like to remind you, and we thank those of you who already completed the survey, This survey specifically is for quality assurance for pharmacy education. Now, why do we want to see that survey implemented at the FIP level? Well, we've done, and I had the privilege to do accreditation in the nation and United States, but also globally. And a lot of time when you do these accreditation, there's so many different agencies and accrediting bodies that we probably want to kind of find a common theme among all of these initiatives globally. We also want to hear from you. Do you see the value and relevance and the importance and the outcome of these assessment when you do the self-assessment tool? So we want to give you that tool, one of the tools in your toolbox for continuously improving the quality of education, but also maintain it and improve it, and we learn from each other, which is what best practices. And last but not least, FIP globally, as you know, take the lead on implementing all these best practices, all these models, as we heard from Dr. Catherine. How do we impact the practice, the education, the research globally? So I think all of us, if we're not behind FIP, we would love to hear from you. If you already responded, that's great. We will disseminate this information to all of you. We hope to see you at the upcoming meeting for FIP. In the meantime, if you did not get a chance to complete the survey, my colleague and his team staff here at FIP would love to hear from you. So please send an email to aim@fip.org. One more time, aim@fip.org. If you have not completed the survey, we'd love to have you join us. The more responded, the higher the level of generalizability of the survey instrument. With that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, and I believe Ralph can I close the webinar for us? Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you, everybody, for sticking with us to the end, even though we've gone over time. And I just want to thank all of our speakers for the great presentations they gave. But I want to call out Lisa Hong from California, because it was 4:30 in the morning when all of this started. So, Lisa, thanks for joining us. At any rate, I also want to, again, thank all of the audience for your questions that you've put in, and we'll have to get back to you, and information you put in the chat box. I'm going to keep my comments very short because I've got another meeting right behind this one, so I do need to leave as well as you do. But I think this handbook is a really important piece of work because academic capacity is a global issue, and it's a continuous issue for all of us in academia. So we have to develop and sustain the academic capacity of our institutions so that we can continue to provide quality educational experiences, which is the bedrock of workforce development for pharmacy and certainly other professions as well. The one thing I think that the one challenge we all have as academics is convincing our students that an academic career is really worth looking into and preparing them for an academic career. And many of the things that were talked about today, if we involve students in that work with us, we can bring them along, and they will become our academicians of the future. So I think we do have that challenge before us, and we need to really dive into it and really help students understand that an academic career could be a really great career to have for the rest of your life. The one issue that I think I want to talk about very briefly is, and this was mentioned earlier, especially by Sean Gleason, who mentioned various types of advocacy, whether it's the advocacy for patients all the way up to advocacy at the governmental levels. Academics traditionally are not very keen on engaging in advocacy, especially at governmental levels. And I will say until about 10 years ago, I was not heavily involved in it, but I did become that way. And in fact, you can make a difference, and we did make a difference in our state where we live. And be able to advance pharmacy practice, which has implications for our curricula, because now our curricula has to keep pace with these advancements, and we have to prepare our students and prepare practitioners who are out there to meet these new roles for pharmacists. Lastly, fortunately, we're not alone in this process. I think, as you have heard, FIP has many resources. This is just one of them. We have the AIM. We have the academic pharmacy section in FIP education, the FIP UNESCO Unitwin program that was noted earlier by Genuine, and a variety of other resources where we can all network together, we can all learn together, we can all share together, and really advance pharmacy education and help our academic capacity needs. So I just encourage all of you to look into the opportunities at FIP for networking with your colleagues around the world, as we've done today, which is always a great experience. So again, thank you to our speakers. Thank you to our audience. Thank you, Lillian, for moderating and being the lead on this project.
Thank you, Ralph, for your insights today, and also the very philosophical contribution that you have put in the publication that will help us all go back to the drawing board and use this publication as a starting point to think on how we can improve academic capacity in our own institutions. And as we come to the end of this session, I'd like to thank you again for staying on and joining us. And we move to the next slide. I would like now to invite you to be part of an opportunity within FIP AIM to take part and network more and be part of our 2024 FIP AIM area of concentration. So this year, we will be working, our working group will be working on promoting research and postgraduate education, which in itself ties in as a small part of the academic capacity that we have touched upon today. It also ties in with how we can support the workforce development goals, the FIP workforce development goals of people-centered care, by having more research and postgraduate education that can empower people and pharmacists and pharmaceutical sciences in this area. And another FIP development goal that sits very closely to this area is the sustainability in pharmacy, because through research and providing further education, postgraduate education, we can contribute to also to a sustainable pharmacy in the area of practice and sciences. So we will shortly be launching an invitation to our FIP AIM members to nominate volunteers to this working group, and I do hope that we can network and discuss on this area of concentration. Surely, we would love to also network in the FIP Congress coming up in Cape Town. So I look forward to meet as many of you as we can in South Africa. And as has already been cited earlier, we will have a specific session dedicated to Gulf, which is the session organized by FIP AIM. We always organize this in a very interactive way. So we do look forward to having you there with us, providing your insights, and together we are all learning and evolving and facing the challenges of academic leadership and providing support to our teams. So with that, I would like to again thank the FIP staff for their support. So I'd like to thank Ozge, Ozer, who is our direct FIP manager and who supports FIP AIM and all the things that we've been doing nicely over the past years. I would like to thank the FIP AIM advisory board members who would have reflected a lot on the next steps and the next exercises that are taking place, and of course, surely the people who are involved in this area of concentration. And therefore, with that, we leave you and hope to see you and connect with you. This is the email through which you can reach us. We really look forward to hearing any feedback from you, because in this way we are all learning from each other. Thank you for staying on, and thank you for connecting with us.